Thanks for watching our video. Make sure to subscribe to the Old Stone Church YouTube channel.
There's an old Ed McCreary, Pete Seeger song that goes, "Last night I had the strangest dream I never had before. I dreamed that all the world agreed to put an end to war. And when the papers all were signed and 1,000,000 copies made, they all joined hands and bowed their heads, and to their God they prayed. The people in the streets below were dancing round and round and round, and guns and swords and uniforms were scattered on the ground." Song from the 60s, a pipe dream at best. About as naive as the prophet's words, "The Lord shall decide, and nations will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks and study war no more." If not pruning hooks and plows, how about melting down F-86s into little pins like I wear, and ballistic missiles and billion-dollar defense budgets into food for the world, education for every child, clearly something that would put an end to the terrorists' fertile ground. And for we Christians, the words tumble down even harder. "Unto us a son is given, and his name is the Prince of Peace." If you watch the preacher at the royal wedding, he said it clear, Jesus mandated. He didn't give us a suggestion, not a request, but a mandate to love even our enemies and heal the world with love. But we still know more about war than about peace, more about killing than about living. So said General Douglas Haig. When are we going to learn that life is consequential, not only for individuals, but even more so for nations? That we are punished not so much because we break God's laws, God's commandments, but rather that we are broken on them. In Memoriam, Latin meaning memory, as a memorial too, used in obituaries and epitaphs. Memorial, a word attached to a holiday weekend filled with the aromas of hot dogs and hamburgers, and by the time festivities are finished, perhaps even a bit of stale beer. Tennyson, who never saw a battle, never a skirmish, wrote a poem in Memoriam, and then he ended it by saying, "Into the valley of death rode the 600, forward the light brigade, charge for the guns." How would he know? Each year, our nation places a wreath on the grave of the unknown soldier, even though, with modern forensics, we could now name those persons. The event always brings to mind a scene from my seminary days. A classmate during the height of the Vietnam War made a movie of his 3-year-old son, whom he had taken to a hill among those hallowed stone crosses of Arlington. And he then drove to the bottom of the hill and had the youngster run pell-mell to Daddy. There he came like a slalom skier, weaving his way, innocent, to what was cradled beneath. All those white crosses. "That these honored dead shall not have died in vain," said Lincoln, "yet how soon forgotten. Why is it politicians, most of whom these days, with the exception of heroes like John McCain, have never even seen a skirmish, nor have their children, how is it we let them beat the drums of war and patriotism as if the only way to stand tall is to put another down? All the while, we become a less noble land. War too often being the coward's answer to peace. How many of our honored men and women decay in VA hospitals out of sight and mind? And how many more have had the miracles of modern medicine patch their bodies, but not their minds? The ruler is not saved by mighty army, the warrior is not delivered by strength, the war horse is a false hope in victory. So said the psalmist, long, long, long ago. Maybe it's as I've grown older, I've seen what awful things war can do and how little is accomplished by sacrificing our young on its altars. Maybe that's why I'm more than ever moved to side with Harry Emerson Fosdick of Riverside Church, who, following World War I, offered words before the grave of the first unknown. It was an interesting idea, he said, to deposit the body of an unrecognizable warrior, and yet how strange. The most stirring pageantry. This is the outcome of Western civilization, which for more than 2,000 years has worshiped Christ and in which democracy and science have had their widest opportunities. That the whole nation should pause its patriotic oratory flourish around the body of a soldier blown to bits on a battlefield. It's the warlords who picked him, and yet is he so utterly unknown? Of one thing we can be sure. He was of sound mind and body. All primitive gods who demand a sacrifice insist the animals be the best. Can you think of anything madder than to pick a nation's finest and put them on the battlefields of war? Along with Fosdick, I dare say this day we all have a score to settle. I hear them asking, where is this great era of war the war was to create? They blew my eyes out. Is that why I strain to see the prosperity, plenty, and peace of our children, for which our mangled bodies were laid down? It was not a pacifist, but a field marshal who said it is the business of churches. It is our job, to make the business of war impossible. Most telling scene comes in the film of Herman Wouk's Winds of War, when Robert Mitchum, as Naval Commander Pug Henry, stands on a bluff overlooking a devastated Pearl Harbor as his son sails off to battle. Gazing longingly to the heavens, he says, "O Lord, in a world so rich and lovely, why is it your children can find nothing better to do but to dig iron from the ground and work it into vast, grotesque machines to blow each other up? Is it because Abel's next-door neighbor was Cain? Is it because my enemies make deadlier engines and I must do it better or die? Maybe the vicious cycle will end this time. Maybe not. Maybe it will take Christ's second coming, and maybe it will never end." A sad commentary, and we rightly say, what can we do? Given the ways of the world and the evil of our enemies, what can anyone do? At the very least, I would say with Fosdick, on this weekend, if those around you seem to relish in the valor being shown, remind them. Remind them that this and every Memorial Day is the saddest of days, saddest because of the continued repetition of evil that perhaps only God can deliver us from. Almost every day, Carol and I walk our English Mastiff in Lakeview Cemetery. We've gotten to know the inhabitants pretty well. They're very quiet folks. On the side of one very large stone, a mother and father who died in their 70s. And on the other three sides of an obelisk, 5 sons. 1853, age 21, next to him. 1854, age 29, Grand Army of the Republic. And then on the other sides, one son wounded at Gettysburg, died 3 months later, 1863, age 23. On the third side, another son, 1865, age 17. And finally, under his name, one more brother, 1864, age 19, died in Andersonville prison. All offered by two parents who had to live out their years to their 70s, offered to their nation, all gone in the springtime of their lives. Another stone reads Royal Air Force, 1919. He died for his country. He was but 19. Each time I pass that grave, I'm reminded of the ballad, Green Fields of France. I hope you died quick, I hope you died clean, or Willie McBride, was it slow and obscene? Did they beat the drum slowly? Did they play the pipe slowly? Did the rifles fire o'er you as they lowered you down? And then the lyrics continue their truth-telling. Now the sun shining down on these green fields of France. The warm wind blows gently and the red poppies dance. The trenches have vanished long under the plow. No gas, no barbed wire, no shells raining down. But here in this graveyard, that's still no man's land, the countless white crosses in mute witness stand to man's blind indifference to his fellow man. A whole generation who were butchered and damned. What can we do? I was moved recently by the wisdom of a young vet. He's a congressman, born in Alabama. Because I missed part of the interview, I didn't catch his name, and I haven't discovered what state he now represents. As he spoke, I was reminded of something Tom Brokaw wrote in The Greatest Generation. Brokaw pointed out that the reason we seemingly had more statesmen in the halls of government in the past was perhaps because many had served in the Second World War, were wounded or imprisoned, and upon returning home ran for office. And while they had differing opinions, because of that common experience, they tended to be more inclined to put their country first. That young veteran and congressman I mentioned said to the reporter, "You know, I was just 22 when I led a group of men and women into battle. I did 4 tours. We didn't know or care if we were Jew or Christian, Muslim, atheist, gay, straight, Republican, or Democrat. We cared about the job we had to do for our country, whether we agreed with it or not, country first, and care for each other. That was our commitment." Having read Brokaw and thinking about today's young men and women, now 17 years into the longest war in this nation's history, some just beginning to serve who were born when it all started, I thought, perhaps our future once again might rest in the hands of those young, battle-hardened patriots who, regardless of opinions or party, will choose to put country first, and having seen the tragedy of war, have a greater desire to study it no more. Perhaps there is yet hope for your grandchildren and mine and the world's. And what might we, you and I do? St. Paul tells us, as God's people, clothe yourselves in compassion, kindness, gentleness, patience. Forgive as God has forgiven you, and most of all, put on love, which binds us all together. The sum of the gospel is reconciliation. The whole action of God from the beginning of time to the end of days is the bringing together of that which is broken, separated, alienated, rent asunder. For Christians, it's what Jesus was all about. God becoming one of us that we might become one with God's ways as we care for one another. This for me is not about naive sentimentality. I'm a realist. Nor is it about disrespect for any and all who have served. This is about a rightful honoring of those who have sacrificed to create a better, kinder, more gracious and accepting planet. It is because of all of them that we need to carry on a lover's quarrel, especially with our leaders. A lover's quarrel that results in the gaining of a godlike wisdom, so that when we depart this life, those who follow will affirm that we have left behind a little more truth, a little more justice, a little more beauty, and a lot more peace. A lot more peace than would have been the case had we not cared so deeply about all of our brothers and sisters of every race and gender and creed and nation, causing us to think past who we are and what our world is like to a vision of what together we might yet become. Only then will our knowledge be a light to others' paths and our faith a living thing in the hearts of those who follow. Only then will our memorial days be worthy of those who have given their last full measure of devotion. Amen.
Thanks for watching our video. Make sure to subscribe to get the latest and greatest videos from the Old Stone Church. And if you feel blessed by our message, please go to theoldstonechurch.org and click Donate. God bless you today and forever. The Old Stone Church. We've been loving Christ and serving City since 1820.